Hi everyone, welcome to Cosgrove Math Revolution. I am Mrs. Cosgrove, and before we start, let me just say that I am a math teacher, not a YouTube actor. So my videos might look a little different than what you're used to seeing on YouTube. I am not about gimmicks. I'm not about costumes and silly things. I just want to teach you math and teach it to you in a way that makes sense. If there's easy ways to do things, I want to share those with you. If there are ways to check your work or shortcuts that you can take, I am definitely going to share those with you as well. Math is really important. It's something that you're going to use in your entire life. Even if you don't have a computer or calculator handy, you should be able to do calculations and understand what you're doing. It's not like other subjects where you really need to practice. You can't memorize stuff and make your way through math. That works a little bit in the beginning, but as you'll find, math gets a little bit more complicated as you go along. It's also something called spiral curriculum, which means that you learn something and then you add on to that each year or each unit, depending on the way that your math is taught. But again, my focus is for you to find shortcuts and find ways to check your work so that you know what you're doing, and for your math confidence to improve if it's not already there, and for you to like, if not love, math by the time you're done watching my video series. I am going to go through mainly algebra and building up to algebra, pre-algebra, basic math skills. That is really my focus. And again, I'm a math teacher. I can't stress that enough. So being a math teacher, I have a certain way I like to teach things, but unlike some other math teachers out there, I don't care the method you use to get to the answer as long as you get to the answer and can explain your thought process. Because there really is no one way to do math. There's so many new ways that I'm learning all the time, new ways. And I'm old, so that gives you a little bit of an idea of how math advances throughout the years, I guess. So anyway, if you're looking for quick tricks, if you're looking for what I believe is a well-explained method and some thought process behind the math curriculum that's out there and some of the vocabulary that's used and confusion that's really unnecessary, then you're in the right place. You're looking at some fairly straightforward, hopefully straightforward videos that I'll be putting out for you. And I hope they help, and I hope that you enjoy watching my series. Okay, I think that's all. So this is my very first video, and I hope to do a lot in the coming weeks and months and years. And if you have suggestions or specific things that you would like me to go over, please put a message at the bottom or get a hold of me and let me know, and I would be happy to do what I can to put something together for you. Otherwise, check back often, and I hope to have a lot of videos in the near future. Okay, so very first topic that I want to go over is integers. And integers are important because you have to understand how to combine positive and negative numbers in order to be successful in any type of math. So integers is something that I want to make sure that everybody out there knows how to actually work through. I started off actually with a video that I was trying to do all the integers in one video, and it was an extremely long video, and that's not my goal. My goal is to make things as straightforward as possible and not just jabber on so that I have enough time on my videos. I just want to make sure that things are understandable, and hopefully that is the plan. So hopefully that will work. So integers. So let's talk about the integer rules, and then I'm only going to tackle some of them today on this video, and then you'll have to look for subsequent videos for other pieces. So Integers are numbers, obviously. I hope everybody knows that. So an integer is a set of numbers that includes negative numbers, 0, and positive numbers. So for example, I'm going to put 3 dots here, which just means that it continues, okay? So -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And again, 3 dots, knowing that it continues this direction as well. So negative numbers, positive numbers, but 0 is also considered an integer. All right, there are some basic rules and some things for you to understand about integers before you can actually go through and tackle them. Some integers you've dealt with since you were in kindergarten, maybe even before, right? These positive numbers over here, adding those together, subtracting those. But now we're getting into introducing those negative numbers, and the negative numbers can be tricky. So it's really important to have some rules in place. All right, so the rules that I like to present and that I like to go by in my classroom are same signs add, okay, and important side note is keep the sign. And I'll go through what each of these mean in just a minute, okay? So same signs add, keep the sign. Next one is different signs subtract, and larger number, that's number sign, right? Not hashtag, it's actually a number sign. Larger number carries the sign. And hopefully you're able to see these notes. Again, I'm not a YouTuber, and I have no interest in standing in front of a whiteboard and teaching you as if you were my classroom. I don't really want to be on the video. I just like to explain the math. So hopefully this method works for you. Okay, anyways, let's continue on. So same signs add, different signs subtract. Okay, these are the rules for addition and subtraction. Okay, and again, we're gonna focus on the same signs add in this video. We'll get into different signs subtract and then the multiplication and division rules that I'm gonna put here in just a second in subsequent videos. But the reason, again, that I wanna do that is because I want you to really understand what you're doing. And if you don't need to watch the whole video, that's totally fine. But if you need to watch the whole video, that's okay too. There'll be plenty of practice opportunities for you. Okay, so same signs add, different signs subtract. Those are for addition and subtraction. Okay, for multiplication and division, for multiplication and division, they're very similar rules. So the rules are same signs, positive answer. Okay, and different signs, negative answer. Okay, so these are the rules. They're very similar though, if you look at them. So for addition and subtraction, it's same signs add, but add is positive, right? So for multiplication division, same signs positive. So they do kind of go hand in hand, just depending on which operation you're actually performing. And same with different signs. So different signs subtract is negative, different signs are negative. So again, we'll get to those later on. A couple of things that you need to keep in mind that are really important are, number one, when we subtract, let's talk about this one first. When we subtract a negative, you're going to actually add. Okay, and we will get into that today in the video that goes with same signs add. So we'll focus on, and I may do different sign subtract also depending on how long the video is. Again, I don't want it to be extremely long for you. We'll see how it goes. But when you're subtracting a negative, you're actually going to add it. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. Something else to keep in mind is anything behind a subtraction sign is actually negative. Okay, so a number that's behind a subtraction sign is a negative number. And that, again, will make more sense when we actually go through and we do some examples. So the way I like to do examples is I like to walk through and show you exactly what we're doing with some extra notes in the practice problems. Then we'll go through and do some practice problems. And I don't remember if I said this already or not, but if you are learning for the first time, or if you're reviewing and reminding yourself what you're supposed to be doing, it's a really good idea to take notes. And when you're sitting in your math class, regardless of whether it's in elementary school or high school or middle school, college, wherever you are, it's a really good idea to take notes, whether the teacher says to or not, or the professor says to or not. The best way for you to go back and review what you learned in the same manner in which it was taught is to actually take notes. So it's a really good idea. If you're not in the habit of taking notes, please start taking notes in your math class. That way when you go back to do the work, you can refer to something that's right there in front of you. You're not having to try to recall or remember what the teacher said in class. The other thing that you need to do is you have to practice. You have to practice. That's the best way to get better at math, is to do a lot of practice problems. Okay, so speaking of practice, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to focus on same signs add. Okay, I'm going to start off by rewriting the rule. Okay, same signs add. And keep the sign. Very important. Okay. This keep the sign, that part gets really confusing if you're dealing with negative numbers and you don't remember to keep the sign. It's going to throw you off for the remainder of your math career. So it's really important that you get this down. Okay, so same signs add. What does that mean? That means that you have two positive numbers that you're adding together and they're going to stay positive. You have two negative numbers that you're going to add together and they're going to stay negative. You have a positive that you're adding to a negative, or a negative that you're adding to a positive, and these are both going to be larger number carries the sign. Okay, larger number carries the sign. Actually, these are different signs, right? So that's not going to work. I'll cut that part out. Let's start that part over. Okay, let's start again by rewriting the rule. So same signs, add, keep the sign. So keep the sign, very important. Okay, so this stretches from regular standard math into now looking at some negative numbers. Okay, so we're going to look at standard math first, which we're going to go through and actually label it so that you understand kind of my thought process on the positive and the negatives and how to look at them. Again, standard math, you don't have to look at them the same way, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of what we're going to do when we get to the negative numbers. Okay, so standard math, 7 plus 10. Okay. So we're going to go through and we're going to determine positive and negative numbers each time for the first few examples so you can see my thought process. Okay, we're going to start with this 7 here. If my pen will work. There we go. Okay, this 7 right here is positive. You know it's positive because there's no sign out here in front of the 7. If there was a little negative sign out here, obviously that would be negative. But positive numbers, sometimes they have a plus sign, sometimes they don't have any sign. So if it doesn't have a sign, it's a positive number. Now, this 10 right here is also positive. And I'm going all the way back to the plus sign in order to understand that it's behind a plus sign, it's a positive number. So when I add these two together, they are the same signs, they're both positive. I'm going to add them and I'm going to keep the sign. So 7 plus 10, 17. Okay, let's do another one. So let's go with 100 and we're going to add that to 15. Okay, so if I have 100 and I add 15 to that, again, 100's positive. And 15 is also positive behind a plus sign, so it's a positive number. And if I have 115, I'm going to do it over here off to the side. So 100 plus 15, I'll just add each of the columns. So 5 and 0 is 5, 1 and 0 is 1, and then bring down the 1. So I'm going to have 115. Let me circle these here so they stand out better. Circling your answer is always a good idea. Easier for you and for your teacher to see. Okay, so you say, these are really easy. This is standard math. Obviously, I know how to do that. At least I hope, obviously, you know how to do that. But let's talk about same signs when they're negative. Okay, so when they're negative and they're the same, we're going to add them. Okay, for example, if I have a negative 15, and I'm going to add that to a negative 10. Okay. And this parenthesis right here, this just means that this negative sign goes with the 10. Doesn't mean multiply. The reason you know it doesn't mean multiply is because there's an addition sign here. This is just a grouping symbol for that negative 10 because they will never put together a negative sign and an operation. They won't sit next to each other without that grouping symbol there. And again, it doesn't mean anything except that the negative sign goes with the 10. Okay, so if we continue on with this logic here, we'll box this guy up. He's negative. There's a negative sign in front of the 15, so that's negative. And this one is also negative. So if I have a negative and a negative, they're the same signs. I'm going to add them together. So 15 and 10. 15 and 10 is 25. And again, this is really important. Keep the sign. So they're both negative. It's going to be a negative 25. All right, let's try that again. Let's do negative 30 plus a negative 3. Okay, again, negative 30, negative. Negative 3 is also negative. So they're both negative. I'm going to add them together, keep the sign. So 30 plus 3 is 33. Both negative, negative answer. Okay, here's another example. So if I have negative 17 and I'm going to subtract 8. Okay, so again, remember what I said. Anything behind a subtraction sign is actually a negative number. Another way to write this problem is negative 17 plus a negative 8. These are the exact same problem. Okay, this is the simplified version. This is not simplified, but you'll end up with the exact same answer. So on this one, you have negative 17. So this is negative. And again, behind a subtraction sign makes that negative. So this is negative 8. And if they're the same signs, we're going to add them together. Okay, so 17 and 8, I'll do that over here on the side. If I add them together, I get 7, 8, which is 15, carry 1, which is 25. Okay, so 25. And again, it's keep the sign. So they're both negative. This is going to be a negative 25. And again, if you look at it here, this is the exact same problem. So I have a negative 17. I'm adding a negative 8. They're going to add together. You're going to keep the sign, which is negative 25. Let's try that one again. Or one like that. Let's do a simpler number. How about negative 3? and we're going to subtract 7. Okay, -3 minus 7. So this is a -3. 7 is behind a subtraction sign, which makes it negative. So we're going to combine those two together. So I have -3 and -7, same signs, add. So 3 and 7 is 10, and keep the sign, which is negative. Okay, that is same signs, add, keep the sign. So hopefully that makes sense to you, and I will create another video that has examples of all integers, and it will just be a bunch of practice problems that are all mixed together. But this gives you a little bit of an idea of if I have two positives, I add them together, keep the sign, stays positive, two negatives, add them together, keep the negative sign, and a negative subtracted from another number, which again is two negatives. And you add them together and keep the sign. So I hope this helps, and thank you for watching, and I hope you learn something about integers. Thanks.